We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Marisol. It's good to be with everybody. I changed this view back to gallery. So good morning and welcome to our weekly gathering. Going to ask Marisol if she would play our opening song as we greet each other on the board. We're just proving again, Marisol, we just can't get enough of a good thing. So thank you for that. Double Shot Sunday. Welcome everyone. So we're here for the weekly gathering. And this is when I read the statement of purpose, which I read from the back of the Tao book, Gina's translation. Awakening together is an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, members seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And I just want to pause for a second right here with the purpose. Because we are an assembly of equals. And what equals means is not that we're all at the same place on the path. It doesn't mean that we've mastered the same maybe practices or insights, knowings, ways of being. It means that we are the same in value, that we are the same in essence. And we are the same, therefore, in our ability to master, in our ability to awaken. And so it's just such a gift to be in and among an assembly of equals that are joined in that common purpose. And it's an absolute joy to be among you. So every with each message, the minister is directed, prompted to focus on a core value. We have 5 at Awakening Together. The core value that seemed most apropos for today's message is core value number 5. We accept all forms as temporary appearances permitted through enduring awareness of the capital S self, of true nature, of the truth. We live this value. So every value has a statement, and then it points us to how to live it. We live this value by honoring all appearances and all experiences. So we honor all appearances and experiences while reflecting on changeless truth. And to honor all appearances and all experiences, that means honor means to regard with great respect, to give due regard, to give attention to. And as Nisargadatta says, attention is love. So that's the posture and the intention with which we hold each other, we hold our purpose, and we hold this service. And now, having said all that, we'll turn to the announcements. Okay, that concludes the announcements. And you ready? Because here comes a smooth segue to the more devotional part of our service here. So I guess this just keeps playing here. I want to say happy birthday to Connie Poole. I was going to say it later, but it just keeps crashing in and won't let me hear the next thing I'm supposed to say. So I just want to say that we're all in joy to celebrate our dear, dear friend today. Okay, so now guidance, may I please hear you as you want to speak to me? Okay. Um, so the title of today's homily is Norming the Natural. Fear is a part of life. That's what we do in our classes and our retreats and in our sharings, right? We norm these natural parts that come up and we go, oh, I guess this is just me, or oh, I'm still having this, or oh, I can't believe this is. And mind makes up that we're separate, alone, and not quite getting it. And so part of what we do in every retreat is norming the natural. The natural what? The everything of life, all the colors, all the emotions, all the flavors of the rainbow is going to come through. If you're lucky enough, every human that longs to be free, because freedom is not being from certain things, it's the freedom to be with them, just like life wants to bring them. And so I'm going to ask Marisol to play the opening song in a minute, but I want to read you first the description, because hopefully it makes the opening song make some sense. So this is Norman the Natural. Fear is a part of life. When we embark on the spiritual path, often the motivation is to end suffering. For most people, the presence of fear equates to the presence of suffering. Since we want to eliminate suffering, we often try to do so by denying, avoiding, or eliminating fear. But what if fear is not actually coming at us, but instead coming for us, coming as a wake-up call in the illusion, as a helpful reminder that we may be sleeping and that there is something present which is asking for our attention? In short, what if fear lies not as an impediment to spiritual progress, but is actually pointing the way to the highest lesson we could be living and learning right now? And then it goes on to say, join me as I share my journey from going from avoiding fear at any cost, going to enormous lengths, to tolerating fear as a part of life that what must be white-knuckled through, to the present day, where getting real with fear is not only practiced, but is genuinely welcomed as a portal back to reality. And so what kept coming as we were living this retreat this week is these middle of the night wake ups with like, I don't know if it was a dream. I don't know what was happening, but I would wake up and fear was already here. And I was like, wait, what? Wait a minute. I have to get up. I got to be clear. I got to go over things. I've still got reviewing. Mind would just start going in. And what I kept hearing is, hello, it's me. And it was like, no, don't cue Adele. I want to go back to sleep. I don't want to sing along. I don't want to lesson. I don't want any guidance right now. And then I would hear, hello, it's me. Are you California dreaming? It's like, yes, I'd like to go back to California. Anyway, that just kept playing and playing. And so eventually I got very clear that even that, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning call that doesn't seem convenient was fear. And I had two choices. I could say hello, or I could say no, and turn away and avoid and push away and start a resistance pattern. The latter of which has me get wide awake and aggravated. And the former just lets me sink in, feel what's here, get curious, and be with it. So our first song is Hello by Adele. Please join me in prayer. I give our invocation. Hello. What I want you to know is that I'm listening. What I want you to know is in this sane moment, I get that what arises in me as tough, tight, emotional energy, what arises in the mind as yet another reminder of what isn't healed, of what's so uncomfortable and confusing, I don't know what to do with it. That it's the very belief that there's a me that must do something with it that's the point at which I start to listen. I start to listen not to that voice, an egoic voice that pushes against, but I start to listen to you, to source, to the one true self, to the heart that holds it all and says, come, come. You do not have to push this away. You can come sit with me in the heart and we will look at it together. That when fear is felt, the prayer is, please, Lord, let me shift to trust. Let me remember what I truly want. What I truly want is, is the ultimate shift, the shift in identity to the one true self. Awakening together's definition of awakening. That's what I really want. I want a shift in identity to the one true self. And in this moment, I'm willing to rest in that intention and ask, what is it you would have me see that I'm not now seeing? How would you have me hold this, know this, be with this? I truly desire to seek ye first the kingdom. And I trust whatever is to be added to me will. And I thank you in advance knowing that when I ask to know you, I'm already with you, asking from you to simply have a shift in identity to the truth of what I am. Amen. Invocation going there, don't we? All right. Now we have a reading. Oh wait, okay, so now I have to say this too. In just a second, I have to pull this up. So Sheila, our reader, was in the retreat this week, and the prompt came to ask her to be my reader, right? I should have had this pulled up. Apologies. So I wrote and said, would you, I said, I got the prompt to see if you'd be willing to be my reader Sunday as I perform the duty of being this week's AT minister who gives the homily. She said, yes. Writes back, yes. FYI, I have not attended Sunday service before and do not know what a homily is. If you are okay with that, if you are okay that I have no idea what you just asked me to do, then yes. So I thank you, my friend. I thank you for planting very tiny seeds of trust and applying that retreat right away. And I thank you for being here today. And I thank you for your service to Awakening Together by reading. This is from A Course in Miracles. This is it's in chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. It comes from a section under fear and conflict. So thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, that retreat was beautiful. This morning I feel really emotional, actually. It's in here. That song played twice was absolutely perfect. Everything has been, actually. So the reading is, I'll just start that. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it at all time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant, it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for reading that and contemplating it as you're reading it. So helpful for me, for us all, I trust. Okay. Norming the natural. Everyone experiences fear. I am reminded of, and you know how this kind of just dawns, whatever's going to dawn, it kind of comes in little bits at a time. I remember last summer in La Vida when we did this retreat in person, and there were 4 people in person and myself, 4 senior, mature, experienced devotees. And I happened to be sitting there when somebody walked down the steps and one of the women were there and said, "You're taking this? Wait a second. You're taking the letting go of fear retreat? Wait, you still have fear?" And I thought, it just was like, you just, there's little, isn't this something? We all kind of think this is our own. Now, it's not that we don't think people have fear. Like, they have fear. There's just this belief it's not as scary. It's not as deep. It's not as persistent. And there comes a belief, I think, on the spiritual path that those, people just have clarity all the time. Like they don't experience fear. Fear doesn't bring them to their knees. Fear doesn't make them, or they don't watch themselves have fear and then this crazy stuff comes out of their mouth that they would never usually say, or they watch behaviors that are avoidant, right? I think we make up that each one of us is doing much, much better. Yeah, we all experience fear, but you're handling it better. You've healed your fear. You're clear. And I could see how important it was this week to just norm the natural. Everyone experiences fear. It's one, like Michael Singer says, it's just one of the energies in the universe. It's one of the energies in the human experience. And so here's the thing about fear. At some point, for most of us, it stops even arising as what we call fear. It got reacted to, believed, and then ingrained, deeply ingrained as a belief, as a fixed mindset. And then we get these avoidances. We get these patterns, right? No, I can't go today. No, it's going to be hot. I can't do hot. I don't do hot. Or no, I can't go today. It's going to be cold. I don't do cold. I'm not sure if the restaurant has exactly the kind of thing that I most enjoy eating and could have things I don't know. I can't, like, all weird. I remember my brother invited my mother and I to go to Europe. He was on work, you know, he had his own company. We would have to work some there, but you know, we Austria and Italy, way up north. I was just too scared. I don't even know what I was scared of. I just thought, I can't really picture it. I can't really pick, no. And I passed. It's okay. No, next time, you know, like, so all these different ways. So, and it reminds me of, this reminds me of in the Adele song, um, uh, hello from the outside, right? Fear crashes in. Hello from the outside. Feels like it's coming in from the outside, right? It feels like it's coming in, right? At least I can tell you that I tried. Fear keeps trying to come to say, hey, if you be with me, we can just let the fear come to its natural end. I won't have to come anymore. I mean, you will get to the point where you can heal this fear. Of course, it doesn't say all that. But once you're on a spiritual path and you start to open to, trusting more and more that, like Viktor Frankl says, right? There's stimulus and response. There's stimulus and response. There's stimulus and response. Our freedom lies in that gap. And so we start to apply that teaching to fear. But the thing about fear is a lot of times it's been believed so quickly, so habitually about so many different things that it's like this line in the song, it don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. We've habituated to this ingrained fear that now is just avoidance or denial or repression, right? It don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear us apart. And I can remember being stunned, you know, I was taking a class here at Center for Conscious Living, and I was walking Reggie outside during the break, and I felt uncomfortable. And I just never used, I used the other 4-letter F word a lot, but I didn't use the 4-letter fear word. It just wasn't one of the, wouldn't have told you I had fear. I would have told you I'm pretty annoyed. I would have told you I'm sick and tired. I would have told you I was depressed. I would have told you I was anxious. I just didn't, that wasn't a word that landed for me. And I remember walking Reggie, and I was in this divorce and a court case coming, and it was all going sideways. Anyway, all this energy. And I just remember stopping right in front of Marlene Volper's house, and who was teaching that class, and going, wait, this is fear. Like, wait, this is what they're talking about. This is fear. Like, so the story, right? The story goes so, I didn't even know this was fear. I did not know this was fear. I just thought it was, I just annoyed because I got this thing to do, right? So again, from the song, right? Where is this? The part where, oh, hello, how are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. Fear just talks. It just talks about itself. It's just so typical. It's just what it does. Fear's got a story. It's compelling, and it's got some data points. It's not like, you know, this isn't to say things haven't happened in the world, and as a result, fear seemed like the stimulus, and then that was the response. So then we go and try to get rid of the stimulus, right? The first thing we got to do is realize this is fear. That's step one. Oh, this is fear. Huh. Okay. So now, does fear have a story? Oh, sure does. All right. Can I actually look at the story, right? It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. And like even in this little verse from Adele, it kind of gives you a hint. Hey, did you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happened? And that's not to say that things don't happen that and again, fear comes. But when we really, really look, the fear was there first. This is just the latest iteration of a script that gives us an opportunity instead of turning away from fear, to turn towards it and say hello. And say, I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet and go over everything. You know, they say time's supposed to heal, but I ain't done much healing. And so I don't believe there is much healing that gets done until we consciously, courageously, and with some moxie, turn to fear and invite in a looking. What am I actually believing? If I want to shift my identity, if I want awakening, an awakening is a shift, a genuine shift in identity from the person, from the individual sense of self that looks like and walks like, talks like, quacks like a person, to the true self. What am I teaching myself right now? What am I believing about that? And so the first thing we do is we call out fear. Hello. Yikes. And we see all the different guises it takes. And then we realize it's scary. It is scary for most of us to feel fear. And it was very scary for me to feel fear. But the second step is to pivot to trust, which is a tiny shift in vibration, or perhaps a larger one, from looking from the fear to looking at the fear. Looking from the fear, we just see fear and fear stories. Looking at the fear, but I need a place to go to look at the fear. I can't seem to get out. So because that fear is the separate self. That fear is a manifestation of the belief in the separate self. That commentator in the mind is a manifestation of fear in form. So we need a shift. So we shift to trust. Somehow, some way, this is happening for me. Somehow, some way, I am no longer aligned with wanting to shift my identity from a small sense of an Anne, a person who's just trying to get it right and doesn't seem to be nailing it today, to shifting to my true self. So part of what I had to do was look at all the ways fear just embedded and became what I would describe as the situation I was living. So what I want to, time just keeps ticking, doesn't it? Okay, here's what I want to share with you. In May of 2021, I took letting go of fear retreat for the second time. I had taken it a year before, in March of 2020. COVID had just happened, or at least the coronavirus as we knew it. Everything's were shutting down. Regina and the retreat subcommittee and Awakening Together decided to take retreats online. And so that's the first time I took it. I just sat on my mom's, I went down to get my mom, who was immunocompromised, to get her to come back to New Jersey. And so I sat on mom's porch and just did 3 days of letting go of fear from my phone. You couldn't go places, so I didn't even have the guide printed. I just listened, and I just listened, and I had so much fear, and I can honestly say I'm not sure I caught much of it, but what I caught was that there's a different way to look at everything I was feeling and believing was real. I did trust, and I feel like I could say I experienced that Regina saw this entire COVID, Corona, danger, shut down, what's going to happen next, uncertainty. She saw that completely differently than I did. It was almost like I was right back in India when I first met this crew and met Regina, and we were taking a walk to the beach in Chennai, and she stood on the bridge looking at what was just pollution and animals and families and houses, and she said, God is in everything I see. And I thought, what? And I don't know how, but I knew she meant it. Like I knew that. I was like, so I went and stood. I've told this story lots. I stood and looked, and I saw pollution and things that were tragic, and families and water and houses, and I saw all that. But what I what sparked inside of me was a knowing that it was possible to see things differently. Okay, so that was, I think, 2017. So fast forward to 2020, I take letting go of fear retreat. I learned very little in that retreat, except when Regina says, what is fear? And I did memorize. It's seeing the unreal is real. It's believing that the unreal is actually real. And so what I did for the next year is hate on myself for continually seeing the unreal is real. I judged myself. I found myself incompetent. I just couldn't believe I could be so awash in fear when really all I had to see is that the unreal isn't real. And I barely knew what that meant, but I just hung on to the fact that I knew someone, Regina, who saw this whole thing differently, honestly, genuinely. So I came back the next year. I was back the next year, but the next year I actually printed the guide so I could actually read it. I could actually spend some time with the material. And there's a point at which you take your greatest fears and you just write them out. Write 3 to 5 of your greatest fears. You just write them. Just a sentence. What's your greatest fear? My number one thing was my mom's health. My mom at the time, I think, was 82-ish. I'm not really good at math at all. She was into her 80s. She had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. She had diabetes. She had some other issues. She had lots of issues, and she was not well. She had trouble breathing, and she couldn't do much for herself like she used to, right? And so then there came a point where after this reading, the reading that Sheila read, right? Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. And why it occurs is that the mind's always creating. It's very powerful. Every instant it's creating. No one remains fully aware of it at all times. It's like, daggone. And it's hard to recognize. Stimulus response. It's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that actually creates this whole illusion that then gets believed as real and experienced as terror. It's hard. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge. So right after reading this, the next thing you would do is write down some thoughts associated with the fears. These were the thoughts associated with the fears that I wrote down in 2021, so 3 years ago. Mom's health. She can't care for herself properly and adequately. It's my responsibility to do so. It's my fault if her health fails. It's up to me to keep her alive and to keep her healthy. Everyone will blame me if she gets sick. You're going to feel guilty and ashamed of yourself if you let her get sick. Your worth rises and falls on her health. If she dies, grief will destroy you, and you will only have yourself to blame. Those were the thoughts. They got plugged right into belief, and they were a power surge. Every morning I would wake up planning, plotting, wondering how it is I could quickly get to the front door. Her friends are still coming over to say, hey, how quickly can I get to the front door and cut them off and put a mask and make sure mom has a mask on and have them mask. Like I would just reenact, how am I gonna, I was just obsessed. I was just running it. And I know I was so scared. And so I went back and found what Regina said to me. And so I want to share today, the message I am to share today is what Regina said to me, knowing full well that I was absolutely wanting to see this differently. She knew this. And so she spoke to me very directly and very frankly in the retreat. I'm going to share it with you. Those are very dark thoughts. And if things go well, your mom and Reggie, I also had similar thoughts about Reggie. And I shared about that in Unfiltered this last week. And that was such a gift. Thank you all for receiving me so generously. Regina, again, if things go well, your mom and dog will die before you. They are going to die. And if you continue to believe those thoughts, you are going to a very dark place. This is 100% preventable. Definitely start watching those thoughts, because it's almost like you're in a high-speed car headed for a brick wall. Lots of time when people say stuff, I can say, well, that might not ever happen, but I can't tell you your mother's never going to die and your dog's never going to die. It's important to see how dark those thoughts are so you can see what you are setting yourself up for. And she also recalled hearing in a previous retreat that I shared when I was a kid, and I was a little kid, and my parents would go out and they went out all the time. They did the 70s, right? They had the tennis club, they had the badminton club, they had the progressive dinner party drinking club, right? They were just always out. And so I was always pulling a stool over to the front door and pulling the curtains and to just wait for them to come home, terrified that they weren't going to come home, sitting there like a sentry, like somehow I'm going to just call them back home, just so afraid they were going to die. Like I wanted to be there when I saw that car drive up in the driveway. So she said, basically, this story has been running in you for a long time. And it's a setup. So for whatever reason, this story has been in you. You know by how you feel how close you are to truth. And you know by how you feel here that you are very, very far away from truth. And then basically she said, what do you want? These are setup thoughts. And there was something about the directness and the concern. There's something about 100% preventable that just had me let go of the story that I was just doing it wrong. I kept doing it wrong. I'm going to keep doing it wrong. And all of a sudden, I just got very, very curious and devoted to figuring out what she meant and how to do that. How to do that. I want to do that. And so only we can recognize the setup thoughts that play so commonly in our own mind. And only we can recognize that, oh my God, they get believed. they get believed so fast. They don't just get believed, they get acted from. They get regarded as like, yeah, this is just me. Yeah, this is just, yeah. So just yesterday during dyads, I just had this like spotlight come to what the similar thoughts were in a different situation at that point in my life 3 years ago. And they were, I don't deserve to be loved. I am not enough to merit love. I'm not enough to merit attention. I am fundamentally inadequate. And you will see that wherever the you is, and you'll reject me. I must fear that inevitable rejection and do better. I must be more, do more, get it right. I'm a failure. I never get it right for long. I am a colossal, unremitting disappointment. So all of these thoughts used to combine into a power surge. And I just kept living them until slowly, and I can't even tell you how. But my biggest fear, let me finish that sentence. I can't even tell you how I have come to not believe any of them now. I do not believe I don't deserve love. I do not believe I'm not enough to merit your love. I mean, you're free to love me or not love me, but it ain't because I deserve it or don't deserve it. You do you, boo. But there's just not. That dog won't hunt. I'm fundamentally inadequate. I see the thought. See, I still see the thought, but there's no power surge now because the thought comes and it doesn't get believed. There's a shift to trust. There's a shift to there it goes. Matter of fact, during this retreat, several times, like this kind of thing happened where I'd start talking. Now I'm supposed to talk here. But in the retreat, if I'd start talking, I'd hear, oh God, at some point you have to shut up and let someone else talk. It was like, but there was still guidance coming. Like it was my job to still do talking. So I still hear that coming. I still hear it coming. You give me a break. They can't possibly still want to listen to you. You have to. So that all that energy still comes, but the difference is the thought comes and it doesn't get believed. It gets questioned. It gets seen. It gets looked at. And so while there's still energy that runs. I mean, it's not, he goes, obviously not near dead. Matter of fact, those energies aren't near dead. The believing of them has absolutely died. I'm a failure. What do you mean? I don't even, like, that doesn't make sense to me anymore. And so what I know is that what I believed was possible by observing Regina and taking retreats with Regina, both in India and then in that example I gave about when she said it's 100% preventable. And I saw she wasn't all wigged out about her mom and this, that, and the other. I don't offer myself as a Regina, but I am this character Anne. I am this whatever this is, and I do offer that. The fact is, I don't believe any of that now. And what I do now when fear comes is I say hello. Now it still might take me a couple minutes, like or even longer, maybe an hour. I don't know. In bed, wanting to go back when I'm confused. I want to go back to sleep. I think I want to go back to sleep more than I want to literally wake up. Literally want to awaken. Literally want to shift identity and teach myself that I am this vastness that Nisargadatta talks about. That is beyond the farthest reaches of the mind. That is my home. And that is myself. And that is also love. So here's the last thing I want to say. The last thing I want to say is, let me get those words. On the other side of fear is love. So then the question becomes, do you want to experience fear? Is maybe some more contrast? What's to play here, right? Some more of that loop of experience. That power surge between thought and belief, between stimulus and response, or is there like a calling in your heart like there was in mine? Like I will figure this out. I will spend these next years with mom, not only being in fear, because when I was in fear, I was nasty, brutish, and short, as Thomas Hobbes says. and I watched as I met my own fear. I could be softer, I could be more gentle, I could love. When my mom finally, my biggest fear, and I'm right at the end now, my biggest fear was that my mom wasn't going to be able to breathe. I was going to have to watch. I was not going to be able to do anything. And she was going to die, like right in front of me. And I'd never be the same. I wouldn't live. That would destroy me. That would be so catastrophically traumatizing. And when my mom was in the hospital after Christmas, there came a point when she started to, her body started to bounce back from the pneumonia. She never did get COVID, and neither did I. Isn't that funny? Mind had all that shit to say. That never did happen. But you did, you got COPD, you're going to get pneumonia at some point. The pneumonia started to get better. So I came in one day, and she was on the floor. She had the belief that the mask they had to help her breathe was keeping the air from her, that the air was out there. And the mask, so she had ripped off her mask and was on the floor. The nurse stopped me and said, "You can go in, but I want you to know what you're about to see." And there was an aide with her that had her arms all the way around my unclothed mother, saying, "It's okay." And mom is fighting. And what I did was walk in, look right at her. "Mom, you're okay. You're okay. Can you put the mask on?" She couldn't hear me. No. So I could have done what the old Anne did. The old Anne, I imagine, just I don't know what I would grab the mask, I probably would have shoved it. I'm strong and used to be very, very strong-willed. And I'll tell you what this Anne did. This Anne sat down in the chair right in front of her. And just loved her. Just trusted. Just let the nurse's aide, who clearly knew what she was doing, do what there was to do. And I just be with her. And eventually, that terror energy ran its course. And they did get her back up into bed, and they did get a mask back on. And what I know is that for all of us, there is a huge gap, potentially for all of us, between stimulus and response. And the freedom that's there is the love that we are. And that's what we're called to actually genuinely shift our identity to knowing that we are, one baby step at a time, one yielding at a time, one letting things be without interfering or believing until they reach their natural end. And the certainty with which I know that this is all of our birthright is the certainty with which I tell you how much I appreciate you and how much I love you and how much, we're all in this together. So I thank you, and I asked Marisol if she will play the Anne Murray song, The Other Side. Thank you all for being here. Awakening Together is a church funded largely by your guidance to have this be the place that continues to be where you get your spiritual nourishment. Please check in if you are guided to become a sustaining member of the retreat house, to be a yearly contributor, or just to click that little QR code and make a donation right now. Check in on that. I just want to end with the Nisargadatta. To find reality, you must be real in the smallest daily action. There can be no deceit in the search for truth. So I thank you, and we now have a couple minutes left for sharing, if you're so called. Joy. You make sure that hand's on purpose, Joy.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, thanks. So beautiful, and I am just sort of jaw-dropping because the film for next month, or for this month, for August, is called Chasing Mavericks, and it's all about avoidance of fear and facing fear and surfing waves, those inner waves. So I just want to thank you so much for always coming forward with such clarity and such absolute fearless willingness to share. Love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I love you too. Joanne.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. It was interesting. You touched on a lot of points. Some of the points I thought were far in the past. I'll be quick, but the first one was the mother thing. I went through something similar with my mother, and I did everything for years I possibly could to make everything go as smoothly as possible. And in the end, it was a total, I can't say shit, but it was a total shit show. And I realized, like, the last 21 days of her life were absolute hell for everybody. And I realized when it was over, it was almost like I could have just done absolutely nothing, and the outcome would have still been the same. It was just the way it was going to unfold, and there was absolutely nothing I could do. Okay, so anyways, I'll leave that. But when you talked about fear, it's very interesting because I grew up my life in this crazy, like almost like where I was kind of raised myself, just kind of undisciplined, and I had no fear, and I was a little on the wild side. And as I matured, fear started creeping in, and then I got to the point where I was responsible, and and then educated, and more refined, and whatever. But when you were talking, I realized that the fear just continues to grow. And as I'm going into, I guess it's early, gerontology, I'm going to be 62 in a few months. And I'm just like, I noticed that I almost like stifle myself. And when you said you wouldn't go to wherever it was, France or something, I had an opportunity to go to Ireland. I'm like, well, blah, 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 and like, I always have a reason that I can't do something, and I'm holding myself back, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I waiting for here? You know what I mean? Am I waiting for the clock to run out? Like, I don't understand, so it's just a very interesting point that you brought up, and, something for me to really think about, because there has to be balance somewhere. And it's like, you just kind of like go over the line at some point, and it just grows, so it's very interesting that you pointed that out, and I appreciate it. and I'm going to stop hemming and hawing and take some chances. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, my friend. Regina, happy belated birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. And I was just laughing at Joanne. I wanted to thank her for pointing out that I am in early gerontology. I never thought of that before. I turned 64, Friday? But Anne, what I wanted to say to you was thank you for listening. I remember, that day when I told you that. And although I didn't experience a huge amount of fear or anything, with a moment like that, to be that direct with someone, and I was direct with you in front of a bunch of people. And as you know, that's not my style.
I do know that. I went back and looked at my notes.
In order for me to look at you and to say those things, I had to step over ego as well. I don't remember exactly what ego was saying, and obviously I stepped over it pretty quickly, but it was something like you're going to break her. You're going to break her. And actually, I think the ego was right. Of course, ego was saying it like you wouldn't be able to handle it, right? That's what ego meant by you're going to break her. But that's what we need, that self that is such a defense mechanism that is just keeping us from living fully. It needs to be broken, but it can only be broken if we listen. Like if you read in TI, how many times, I've never gone through and counted, how many times does Holy Spirit say to me, right? Because I was the student. How many times does Holy Spirit say to me, listen to me, right? Listen to me. Obviously, we have the ability, when we're getting very clear, very direct guidance, to not listen, to let that self just blow it off with another defense mechanism. And so I want to say thank you for listening, because clearly you did. And clearly you survived what you thought you would not survive. And now you stand as a beacon for everyone else to show that it can be done. And I guess what I would say to anyone else who maybe doesn't feel like they've walked that path yet, why am I holding on to my defenses? Why am I holding on to my fear? Why am I holding on to whatever it is that's keeping me from walking that path? The answer is because we're afraid. Right? That's the only answer anybody's going to come to, because we're afraid. There is no other answer. And so what is fear doing? It's just like Michael Singer says, right? It's keeping me in this little closed off, he says cabin, I say box. Is that what I want? I mean, that's what you had to ask, right? Is that what I want? So yeah, I see we're over time, so I'll shut up now. But thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Regina. And thank you for stepping over your resistance to be so direct. That is 100% preventable. And thank you all for, stepping over your own, what you will step over when you're called to. This. And I want to thank you all. And I'm going to now give this back to Marisol so we can shift to fellowship. I love you.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.